You know, every time you see fuel prices jump at the pump, there's a good chance one specific family had a hand in it. Today, we're diving into the incredible story of the Al Saud dynasty. We're going to look at exactly how one single family shaped the global oil market and, in the process, built one of the absolute richest kingdoms on Earth.
So, who actually controls the world's oil? Your mind might immediately jump to Wall Street or maybe Texas. But the real answer? It lies in how a single family managed to transform a harsh desert into a sovereign nation that literally commands the global energy market. To really understand how this happened, we've got to jump back to the very beginning.
Okay, let's dive into this because this massive ambition to unite Arabia, it didn't start in some modern corporate boardroom. No, it began way back in the 18th century, right in the heart of the desert, where they laid the very groundwork for what would become a massive empire.
Now, we can basically compress this centuries-long history into three truly defining moments. First, in 1744, a powerful alliance forged the very first Saudi state. Now, that early state eventually collapsed, and decades of really intense struggle followed. But then, fast forward to 1902, Abdulaziz Ibn Saud launched this relentless military campaign. Against all odds, he finally proclaimed the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia in 1932. So Ibn Saud had successfully united this fractured and, at the time, relatively poor peninsula. But hidden just beneath the desert sands lay a discovery that was about to instantly alter their trajectory forever, turning this struggling new nation into a literal global superpower. 1938. That is the year everything changed. After years and years of just drilling dry holes, American geologists suddenly struck a massive petroleum reserve. I mean, it's wild to think about, but almost overnight, Saudi Arabia went from being this quiet desert kingdom to suddenly sitting on one of the largest petroleum reserves on the entire planet. And this black gold generated hundreds of billions of dollars, completely transforming the nation from the ground up. It funded modern megacities, sprawling highway systems, and cutting-edge hospitals. It also birthed Saudi Aramco. And Aramco is a company so massive that it has historically hit valuations of around $2 trillion. Yeah, trillion with a T. It completely cemented the family's ultimate influence over global energy. Which brings us right to the modern era. You have to wonder, how on earth do you manage an empire this massive and this wealthy? Well, for Saudi Arabia, the power structure is entirely familial. Now, what's really interesting about this slide is the sheer scale of that number. 10,000 plus. When we say royal family, we are not talking about a couple dozen people waving from a balcony. The Al Saud dynasty actually includes an estimated 10,000 to 15,000 members. Obviously, it takes a massive network to run an empire like this, even though a much smaller core group holds the real absolute power. So, how exactly does a family of 10,000 govern a nation? Well, it's highly concentrated. The king serves as the ultimate head of state, while senior princes act as the crucial pillars of the government, overseeing defense, diplomacy, and the economy. Unlike, say, the ceremonial royals you might see in Europe, the Al Saud family holds active, absolute control over the government's decision-making. And look, with absolute control over the world's premier energy markets comes the most obvious question, right? Exactly how wealthy is this family sitting at the very top of the pyramid? Well, there is no official public ledger, but estimates of their combined wealth reach well into the hundreds of billions. And frankly, some estimates put it over $1 trillion. We're talking sprawling luxury palaces, entire fleets of private aircraft, massive international investments, and prime real estate basically everywhere in the world. It is a level of wealth that is, honestly, kind of hard for the human brain to even comprehend. But we do need to make an important distinction here. Those 10,000 family members, they definitely don't all share the exact same bank account balance. Private fortunes actually vary wildly based on an individual's rank and role. Plus, a huge chunk of this staggering wealth officially belongs to the sovereign state itself, rather than to the individual royals. So the crucial point is that the world is fundamentally changing. As nations across the globe aggressively shift toward renewable energy, the kingdom is facing a genuine existential threat. Think about it. What actually happens to an oil empire when the world stops using oil? Well, the Al Saud family certainly isn't just sitting around waiting to find out. Their answer to this looming threat is a totally unprecedented national transformation blueprint. You've probably heard of it. It's known as Vision 2030. And this brilliantly illustrates the massive pivot they're attempting. Historically, we're looking at an economic model heavily driven by petroleum exports, total reliance on fossil fuels. Vision 2030 is desperately trying to shatter that reliance, aiming to engineer a diversified, future-proofed economy that can survive and even thrive if global oil demand ever plummets to zero.
To actually pull this off, they are aggressively pouring billions of dollars into entirely new sectors. We're talking expanding luxury tourism, rapidly growing their tech sector, and heavily boosting global entertainment and sports. They're even, and this is a bit ironic for an oil giant, investing massive capital into renewable energy. They are quite literally trying to reinvent their entire economic foundation from scratch. And to really understand the sheer scale of these goals, you just have to look at their mega projects. They are literally building a futuristic city called Neom out in the desert alongside these massive ultra-luxury Red Sea resorts. We are looking at some of the absolute most expensive and ambitious national transformation efforts happening anywhere on Earth right now.
It really is an incredible narrative arc when you step back and look at it. They've gone from sword-wielding rulers uniting a harsh desert to absolute titans commanding global energy to now, a dynasty that is desperately racing to engineer their own post-oil future. It's safe to say their upcoming decisions are going to deeply shape global energy, diplomacy, and business for decades to come.
Which leaves us with this final, frankly fascinating thought. Will Saudi Arabia actually become a global powerhouse beyond oil? Or will petroleum ultimately remain its greatest and maybe only true source of global influence? It's a massive geopolitical puzzle, and we're going to see it play it out in real time. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer. Definitely let us know what you think.